welcome everybody to another episode of Big Talk about small business. And as you can probably hear, that my main host, Mr. Mark C. Zweig, is not available today. I think he's actually enjoying some time with his family on some vacation, which is a much well-earned scenario.
Sorry we missed you, Mark.
Yeah, we did miss you. I don't know how this is going to go, other than the fact that I got a great guest today. So in his shoes, we're bringing in Tanner Bassett.
Hello.
Yep. And so Tanner is my longest friend ever. We grew up together in Jonesboro, Arkansas, next door neighbors. And but after growing up and all that kind of stuff, getting in the professional world, he is a very much a hard-hitting entrepreneur. I guess we would call you like a serial entrepreneur in a way, and has a lot of great experience to share with the audience and whatnot. So, Tanner, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey from the entrepreneurial side.
Sure. I went to school and got my degree in landscape architecture. That led me to doing an internship in Dallas. When I got out of school, I worked in Tulsa for various design firms in Dallas and Tulsa, and really kind of got a better understanding of the A&E business and you know what the pitfalls, potentials of that would possibly be. And at the time, I was dating someone who was here in Northwest Arkansas, mm-hmm. and she was finishing law school. Mm-hmm. And I ended up moving back here looking for a temporary job because we were potentially going to go somewhere else. So I responded to an ad in the paper and went to work for a local irrigation contractor so that I could learn more about that side of the business.
The construction side. Yeah, because you had a degree in landscape architecture, so you're right. Kind of on that soft side skills.
Very much trapped in the box, in the cubicle. Mm-hmm. Not, landscape architecture is a little more outside time, but blueprints, line revisions, design work predominantly. Gotcha. So I wanted to learn a little more about the hands-on the field side, and I just really loved it. I enjoyed it, and I got an opportunity. I didn't tell them that I was a landscape architecture graduate, and I went in there and just acted like Joe Blow off the street.
I didn't realize that. So that's not, you didn't leverage, I guess, that to get a job. Like you were literally just trying to
work for a short time period.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, it's fine. We were living together then.
Yeah.
At that time, I remember you getting that job. I didn't realize
I had some offers in Dallas, Kansas City that I could, take advantage of if I wanted to get back into that. But I was comfortable being close to my girlfriend.
Sure.
And, trying to learn more about my craft. Mm-hmm. So from that point, the company that hired me, once they discovered that I actually was more than just a guy off the street, I guess, or, had a little more knowledge. Maybe I wasn't much more than that at that point.
Sure.
But,
because you were how old at this time? 22?
22.
Yeah. Yeah. We were young, man.
Young.
Yeah.
But they just so happened to have a big hospital project, the Northwest Health in Bentonville, that had a 5-acre wetland associated with that project that had a mandatory, contractual design build element to the award of that contract. And they did not have a designer on staff or, knew nothing about wetland design. And coincidentally enough, my thesis when I graduated architecture school was hospital campus master planning.
Are you serious?
And I also took one of the only wetland construction courses that the university has ever offered from a guest professor from LSU.
Wow.
That was his specialty. So I had wetland construction experience and hospital campus master planning experience.
Wow.
And
perfect fit, man.
So they offered me a job, I took it and I worked on that project for almost 4 years. And
so what does that mean? You worked on that project for almost 4 years. Like, so you designed it and I guess you're managing and overseeing the construction of it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a significant project. 4 year freaking project, man.
Yeah. It was a 5-year monitoring with the Corps of Engineers. So what they do is every year after the construction is done, you write a report and evaluate how the fauna and ecosystem's performing based on the design intent. And so the real, success of that is to make it through that 5-year monitoring period with a successful project, because that's hard to do.
Sure.
It's hard to build wetlands with, constant development, stormwater changes, and, obviously rainfall affects wetlands quite a bit. But then incorporating that into the hospital campus environment. So there was, one of the things I found in my research and doing my thesis was most of the need within a hospital campus for horticultural therapy or passive therapy in the landscape is for the staff and not the patients. So patients obviously need. Johns Hopkins did a study in the early 1900s about the therapeutic benefits to patients being inside versus outside, being in a sterile environment versus being in a visually stimulating environment or being in nature. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they found that the success rates for treating tuberculosis, to treating mental health disorders, treating skin disorders. There are many things that benefit from taking the patient from inside the hospital room to outside the hospital walls. And they actually designed the very first open-air hospital to start treating tuberculosis patients.
Really?
And until that point, the process was cram all these people in a room.
Yeah.
And it was just constant reinfection.
Yeah.
And lots of issues. So that really was just eye-opening to me of, hey, there's something to this.
Yeah. And you're talking about Washington Regional down in Fayetteville. Is that right?
Northwest Health in Bentonville.
Northwest Health in Bentonville. Oh, okay. Gotcha. My bad. Yeah, it's a beautiful campus, man.
Yeah.
They really,
I did my thesis. Washington Regional was part of my thesis.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then Northwest Health was the actual project that I got to work on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So after that, from that project, though, you continued working with that company for a number of years, right?
I was there for almost 11 years. With maybe $100 million worth of construction in 11 years.
Wow.
Maybe $500 million worth of estimating and bid work.
Wow.
So I've read through a lot of plans in my day.
Sure.
I've installed a lot of different designers' projects, which I thought was really interesting because my very first foray into the construction world was my own design. So I was able to have a lot of leeway on decision making. But as the industry of the commercial landscape contracting business goes, you do a lot of what's called bid build, which the difference in bid build and design build is bid build is you're using someone else's design to come up with a proposal for the implementation of that work, on the project, and you turn it in your bid. And if you get chosen or your company selected, then you're awarded the project, and then you implement someone else's design from those plans.
Got it.
So my company was using, I guess, my knowledge or expertise to help them do that across their project portfolio. So we obviously the 2008 kind of crash here had a huge impact in the whole industry. We at that time had to really increase our radius to be able to kind of keep things going. So we were in 5 different states at one time. I was working at Oklahoma City, Columbia, Missouri, Little Rock,
Just broadening out in reaction to the local. I mean, you had to go get you had to go get more business. Now
we had 110 employees, I think.
Wow. And so at some point, though, you became a partner in that firm, correct?
Yes, yeah. So after the hospital project, it gave me a chance to kind of become a partner, and I took advantage of that, and that really was my first foray into being an owner. Mm-hmm. Now, I would say I'd had some experience and been around lots of mentors throughout my life that were owner entrepreneurs, and I understood the personality, the character, the mentality, and I was attracted to that, but I won't say that I understood it.
Well, but your dad, who I know really well as well, was an accountant, so you kind of always a CPA, excuse me, right? Because there is a difference. There is. Yeah. That's in my mind. That's just how I grew up knowing, right? He was my CPA for quite some time too. So you always grew up in numbers, right? Like you had. I've always known you. I mean, I remember back in high school, I might have looked at your test paper in order to pass a math test or two.
Oh, y'all tell me.
But you were really gifted in a number standpoint, man. I mean, like you could.
Math always came easy to me.
Yeah. And so I just think that that's interesting, right? Because I mean, our audience out there, a lot of different personalities, but you got kind of more math-oriented folks, numbers. You got, folks like myself that are more just, I don't know, idea, vision type folks, And but I just think that that's kind of an interesting nugget there for somebody that's listening that is more.
Well, to take that a little further, I agree with you wholeheartedly. So many aspects go into being successful as an entrepreneur, and I can say that what really has made me successful is not just my vast knowledge of landscape architecture, or it was all the periphery knowledge of I sold knives door to door in high school.
Go.
Yeah. And from a marketing and a sales standpoint, that was eye-opening. I had a sales trainer who opened my eyes when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
With one comment, he said, "Tanner, how would you like to have a comma in your paycheck?"
Ooh.
And I had never even thought about that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So he had me hooked from that point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to really figure that out.
Sure.
And we worked really hard that summer. That was the summer before I went to college when I was 17, 18. And I got into the aspect of sales and marketing, and there's not a lot of that. It's actually kind of like attorneys. They don't let you advertise. It's the same for architects. They're real stringent on how you can't solicit because you're supposed to be an agent for the public good in some way.
It's like a code of ethics associated
with it.
I
wasn't carrying licensure, so I was just basically a designer. I wasn't trying to carry off or pass off the title of architect, but I think that experience, I did telemarketing to pay the bills in college.
Yeah, for the police, right? Or
the Fraternal Order of Firefighters. We won't go into that. But don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Right. But the experience was good because
the experience was great.
Process-oriented sales,
yes,
right, and it's about numbers. It's about the more calls you make, the more you can.
If you want to develop thick skin fast, I would suggest everybody do a little telemarketing for a few months, and you'll no longer have any fear of rejection.
Like when you're talking about this, I'm glad you're saying these things because, like, you and I working together in entrepreneurship. We two different realms, but we were never just like you took that job as in the construction, like you were wanting to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship requires a very high sense of humility, and you just got to do what you got to do.
Right.
I'm not afraid to do anything in this business.
Yeah.
It's just got to get done.
The buck stops with you.
It really does.
And the journey didn't stop from an education standpoint. I feel like my mindset was, I never will know enough.
Yeah.
If you ever think that you have arrived, that will be the point where you fall off your mountain.
It's true.
So I learned a process of continual education and learning was going to be the key to success and development. So I was thirsty for knowledge.
There you go. Yeah.
And that is so key. It doesn't just happen for you because you're there. One thing that's also a key, I feel like, to any successful entrepreneur is to find your niche, to find what differentiates you from your competition. Now, if you're innovative, then there may not be very much competition. But if you're successful, someone will come along and start to copy your idea. So unless you're constantly innovating, you're going to get left behind. Well, I, as just an individual, was fortunate enough to have somewhat of a niche because I started off in structural architecture. So I was one of the few architects that understood the math side of architecture. I had some structural training. I had some, concrete and steel education. I had a lot of physics education that the landscape architecture program would lend more towards geology and botany.
Yeah.
Whereas I was more versed in physics and, structural mechanics. So that gave me a little bit of a leg up in the construction world because I was able to do things that my competition wasn't able to do from a build standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that helped, I think, propel me quite a bit. But you don't know it at the time, how various things will help you. After 20 years in hindsight, you can look back and go, wow, I sold that deal because I sold knives when I was 17.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would have never sold that deal had I not prepared myself years ago with that experience.
I think the message there is, especially to like young folks, right? Like, my oldest girl's working here right now. And I mean, does she have anything to do with podcast videos, right? When she, in 10 years from now, but she this might be some things within what she's doing today, just like helping get things set up and talking with clients.
That's right.
You got to be able to dive in. I mean, I think the biggest thing that, young folks, and we were actually talking about this in the last podcast, young people not being aggressive in their early young years and their fast
when they can.
Yeah. And you try to fast forward 10 years and be this professional, but you really, all those small skills are so important.
You're very, very right. And I feel like I have 2 daughters as well. And, with today's young people, I know that they're battling a lot of the same things that we battled. I'd like to think that we were maybe a little more fearless. I guess every parent likes to say that they walk 12 miles in the rain and snow uphill to get to school every day.
Yeah.
And you young whippersnappers got it way easier than we did. But I would say the fear of rejection is a little more prevalent today in our youth than it was. We were less afraid to fail. And I didn't realize how important that was until I got older. And, there's so many adages, fall down 99 times, get up 100.
Yeah.
Fail your way up.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron. All those are saying the same thing. And it's basically, you're not going to learn unless you try and do and fail. Failure is a good thing.
Yeah.
If you use it.
Yeah.
For your growth. And the more you grow, the less you'll fail.
Mark and I talk about this quite a bit because I think that there can be a misunderstanding with that, right? That where it's okay to fail but that's not what we did as entrepreneurs. We would never fail from a long-term sense, but you had micro failures along the way and you pick yourself up and keep going, right?
Exactly. What do you remember more?
Yeah. Oh, totally, dude. I remember some good
Sticks
failures.
out in your head more. Yeah.
What do you think it is like right now with the younger, like just, I mean, we have daughters same age, right? And we can kind of see that, right? In this mention of fear of rejection, and how maybe it's a little bit more prevalent. I mean, obviously we're not knocking them, but actually we're concerned, to be honest with you, because we want them to be successful. And what do you think that is a little bit of the catalyst to this younger generation? And how can they maybe break through that?
That's a very good question. Obviously, there's advice that we could talk about that would be from a parental standpoint, and there's advice that we could talk about that would be from the individual standpoint, the kid's standpoint, because those are going to be two very different things. I feel like as a parent, you have to avoid being the helicopter parent, and you have to, focus more on being a counselor and a guide as opposed to being the bodyguard. You have to let your kid experience life and experience failure so that they can navigate through some of those obstacles themselves.
Yeah.
And I've seen lots of, successful kids, in every different circumstance. I've seen kids succeed that you wonder how in the world they ever made it. And I've seen kids succeed, or I've seen kids that didn't succeed that you thought, how could they not have made it?
Right.
So there's no rule book or golden, instructions that you can follow that will guarantee your success. There just isn't. And even successful people have a hard time staying there. It's like what we were talking about before. Success is not a destination or an arrival point. It's really more of a state of mind. And I define success as setting a goal and achieving that goal. But you better not relish in that success for too long, because you got to get back to work. Those are just small points. Those aren't points to hang your hat on and stop doing what you do, or you'll become unsuccessful.
That's really good.
The innovation, I feel like for any business, is so key, especially today. We've got so much technology being interjected into all industry. And you can see kind of a mad rush with the whole AI boom of people trying to learn how to integrate that into their business models. I'm excited about, some of the changes in the future, and I've been encouraging my kids to try to recognize some of these trends, these headwinds that we're seeing, such as artificial intelligence, to maybe pursue some of those industries, because I think there'll be a bigger future in those areas that are innovating and that are bringing in these new technologies to help them do what they do. So that for the young generation, I would say, don't be afraid to try anything. Get out, wait tables.
Yes.
Get in the service industry.
100%.
Learn how to talk to people that are unhappy. Learn how to navigate through someone who isn't happy with you. Those are all such big life skills that you will not make it as an entrepreneur if you don't have some of those skills, no doubt.
Boom. You gotta, even with the advent of all the tech and, the seemingly vision of where everything's being handled robotically mostly. I mean, our age, we lived through before internet and e-com. And we've been able to live through a lot of these technological advances. I mean, since the mid '90s. I mean, like we graduated high school. I graduated in '95 in high school. You were in '96,
right?
And we saw the first iPhone, the first iPod come out. I mean, all these things that have happened.
We were the first architecture class at the University of Arkansas to be required to have a computer.
Really?
In 1996.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, what's even more crazy is none of the instructors even knew what to do with them.
And that was some intimidating evolution, right?
It was. Now
Yeah.
it was. They learned quickly, but we were transitioning from a non-computer world
Yeah.
to a computer world, and that was revolutionary. It really wasn't until I got to my internship that I really understood how that was being utilized, and drafting technology, rendering technologies, scheduling, estimating. We really just kind of did everything old school and at the U of A. Although they did, and I'm not going to, but there is one of the most technologically advanced architecture programs in the nation. So I don't want to present them like they're not. The Windows 95. I think everyone can remember how that went. You couldn't do much on the old dial-up.
No, I mean, but like the thing is growing up and starting careers all through that. Look. The whole AI conversation, all the things that are happening now, is basically like a recycle of, in a way, of some of the fears that would strike a lot of the workforce, right? And people of where, but I can say what I experienced is those people skills, and being able to talk to unhappy people and being able to coordinate, make good, resolving conflict, being able to negotiate, right? Being able to sell, being able to price things, being able to quote things,
from
being
the very
timely.
basic level. It's almost, you don't want to get thrown into the really complex, tough fire while you're learning how to do those things. And you don't want your livelihood at stake when you're trying to learn how to do those things. So when you're young and you have the ability to fail and it not impact your life in such a negative way, no kids, no mortgage, I strongly encourage, the younger generation to just get out there, just do something. It doesn't have to, you don't have to know perfectly what it is you're going to spend the rest of your life doing, but you have to take action.
Yeah, you do.
And that action will start to build a snowball of momentum for you,
Yeah, and I think a good encouragement there as well is you don't have any idea what you're going to be doing, right?
Right.
But a good area, to your point, that you could start working in that's going to give you excellent building blocks to give you competitive advantage is working in service-based industries like waiting tables, to where you can talk to people. Waiting tables is such a good one. I mean, I did it growing up, but like you get a table, and it's like this turn of these clients that come in, and you gotta, there's 100 steps in there that where if you can start mastering those, like how to keep them happy when they first sit down, get them drinks or pre-bussing, get them their check at the end, is their food good, get the order in right. There's profiling, absolutely. I remember walking up to tables and I knew
how it was going to go.
Knew how it was going to go and how I needed to behave.
Sure.
That was good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's such a good point, man, encouragement too. So you don't have to know, but there's a lot of industries where learning people skills and becoming better at that, even if you're uncomfortable with it. The good thing about working is that you kind of get pushed into those scenarios and you find out. Yeah. If you're an introvert and you work in a people environment, it helps build your confidence.
No doubt.
It helps build your confidence a lot. So all right, going back to your story, you're at this company, your partner, but then you started your own.
Mm-hmm. We left that company after kind of the market is 2012.
Okay.
The market had kind of started to rebound a little bit, and we had an opportunity that kind of kept for me. A lot of my motivation was, at that time, I had a wife and 2 kids, and I was on the road in 5 states all week long. It was hard to be away, from your family.
Sure.
So I was very much excited about trying to get back in Northwest Arkansas and just building, a real stable base. I felt like we had kind of built I'll call it the overhead monster. And once you get to a certain point, depending on obviously, margins, book of work, you kind of have to feed the monster to survive. So you take top end R of a company and reduce top end R 40%. Well, that leaves you with
What do you mean by R?
revenue.
Revenue, okay.
So it leaves you with your net off of 40% less revenue. Is that enough to cover your capital expenses on your balance sheet? Is that enough to invest for the future? So even if your margin was, I'm throwing this out there, let's use 10% so say you were doing $1 million in revenue and a 10% net margin. And out of that 10%, that's where owners get paid. That's where equipment notes, mortgages, capital expenses, lots of expenses are on that part of the balance sheet and not the income statement from just an accounting standpoint. But those expenses will really pile up on you when you start to lose revenue. It doesn't matter how good you're doing the work. And when the market crashed, we had obviously, many employees that, we can reduce that direct cost, the direct labor costs. But in the middle of a downturn in the economy, you can't quickly reduce your capital expenditures because those are illiquid.
Yep.
You have to sell assets. You have to divulge interest to be able to reduce that debt service aspect of your cash outlay.
Yeah.
And that catches up to you in a big company. So it's like innovate or die. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to look at a bigger radius, because we felt like we weren't going to survive if we just took the revenue 40%, 40% loss in revenue. That would not sustain that company. So we were successful in that, but at the expense of, I felt like my physical and mental health, my reason for even being in the business to begin with. It wasn't to be away from my family and live outside of the place where I wanted to call home. So
Sure.
At that point, I wanted to pursue building a company that fit more of my long-term goals.
Yeah.
So I left that company with another person that worked there as well. And we started a similar company doing smaller projects. We had less employees, more of a niche kind of customer group. And, did that for another 11, 12 years. So that was nice. And I think at this point in my career, I'm fully experienced with the landscape contracting business, and I'm kind of ready to do something else.
I got you.
I don't want to say I'll never get back into it, but I'm excited to.
Yeah.
I have since pared that business down. My previous partner is still continuing on, but I'm kind of getting out of the industry and looking forward to doing some new things. I have a lot of different ideas in the fire, but I'm trying to take it slow.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump into anything too quickly. Did a little bit of farming. I've been consulting with the Carbon Chicken Project. So there's a group that's combining an ancient technology. I don't know if you ever heard of Terraa.
It sounds familiar.
Terraa is a engineered soil, an ancient soil that was discovered in the rainforest and all over South America. And it's believed that potentially the Mayans, the Aztecs, had this technology where they knew how to engineer soil. And that's what they're finding in all of these ancient run landscapes.
Wow.
Well, that is basically come to today's time, and there's a product called biochar Are you familiar with biochar?
No.
So biochar is like a carbon. Think of like wood burning in a fire.
Okay.
But you pull it out before it gets to ash, where it's
Okay.
just still has some organic structure to it, but it's kind of been charred.
Yeah.
That's a very unsophisticated way to explain it. They're taking that and combining it with chicken litter to make an organic fertilizer. Now, the advantage to doing that is you have the ability through the product to uptake carbon in the soil. You also are removing that waste product in the chicken industry from being dispersed out on the ground and finding its way into our water systems.
Okay.
So it's repurposing a waste product, combining it with an ancient technology, and using it as a substitute for what we currently use today, which is fertilizer, which is much less benign and much harder to manufacture, much less expensive, and an organic product that is not currently offered anywhere on the market. So one of the things we haven't talked about is the win-win.
Okay.
So the key in my mind to a sustainable business is it needs to be mutually beneficial for all parties.
Mm-hmm.
If one party is getting over on the other, then it will be short-lived. I've seen many relationships go sour because they didn't know how much money the other person was making.
Yeah.
Or their perception of that.
Right.
But the true win-win aspect is providing a value proposition to someone, creating a niche for yourself. So they come to you and they win because they're getting the best value for their dollar.
Right.
And you win because you're gaining a customer.
Yeah.
That's the win-win. So if you approach business from what can I do for my customer that will help them and that will help me, that is, in my opinion, how you build something that's sustainable.
Yeah.
If your angle in business is how do I help me with my customer, it will be short-lived.
I agree that and I would also say that way to start, and then as you're growing, because the growth mode, like as you experience, right? Like you get a lot of opinions.
Oh yeah.
Competitors come into play, and so you start feeling this pressure to kind of become more self-focused versus just relentlessly putting out value in a niche way, like you're talking about. I mean, I've often said it's pretty easy to start a business. I mean, I would say easy. I mean, very lightly
It's
there.
not greatly complicated.
It's not greatly complicated, but it's really hard to grow a business.
Yes.
Very,
Scale.
very, very hard to grow and scale that business. And I think a lot of reasons is because you start having so much, things become so complicated. You get a lot of opinions, and then you stop focusing on the fundamentals. You start kind of getting into these realms of all these other things matter, right? And I mean, I think that they do, but it becomes analysis paralysis a lot of times.
Definitely agree.
But to your point, that fundamental of providing value, a win-win value to your customer. I mean, if you can stick on that puppy.
Yeah. It needs to be mutually beneficial.
It does.
And, there's lots of projects that involve more than two parties.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it involves 3 or 4 parties that have interests, right?
Right.
So if you can come up with a solution that benefits all 4 parties, that's not a tough sell.
Well, and I mean, I think you're speaking from really great experience, especially in that industry that you've been in, right? Where you have, government, client, investors, a lot of other construction parties, that are involved in these massive projects that you're designing and building. Mm-hmm. And you're in the landscape side, you guys were usually the first at ground.
Mm-hmm.
right?
It depends.
Yeah.
So you have the site work.
Sure.
So if you're involved in that part of it, yes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, but if you can win all the way around for everyone, I mean,
I'll give you an example. If you
okay. Yeah.
So we're working on the Sioux England soccer complex in Siloam Springs.
Mm-hmm.
That was a project that my company installed, 2013. We took a set of plans that was designed by McClellan Engineering. They're very good engineers, and they had under drainage on 6 soccer fields, which is a pretty good size area. I think it's 6. I might be wrong about that. But they had French drain systems designed into the project. And, you say French drain, that means a lot of different things to people. But what an actual French drain is basically a conveyance pipe that's perforated, that's surrounded by free draining aggregate. So they had thousands and thousands of feet of this trench that all had to be dug out, filled, a perforated pipe put in, lined with fabric, and then filled up full of gravel. Well, that aspect of the project, was very, very expensive. So we proposed a value engineer of that aspect of the job to be converted to a new technology that a company, NDS, which is a drainage manufacturing company. They make polyethylene. They make that black corrugated drainage pipe that you see in Lowe's and Home Depot. They had a product called Easy Flow, and it was brand new at the time. That was basically French drain technology built into a much lighter weight unit. They use styrofoam instead of limestone rock.
Really?
Yes, to hold form in the trench.
Wow.
And to let water drain.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it was basically a conveyance pipe surrounded with styrofoam, peanuts, and netting instead of conveyance pipe surrounded by limestone rock.
Yeah.
So it reduced enough cost out of the project where we were able to present that as an option to both the city of Siloam Springs. McClellan Engineering obviously had to sign off on the performance of that product. We had assistance, from NDS with that. We were under contract with another general contractor who had hired us. It helped us because from our standpoint, it was a much more difficult install to do it as designed, just from a method of application.
Labor and
Everything.
Equipment, moving dirt, moving gravel.
Yes.
My gosh, the
Exactly.
weight. Yeah. Okay.
So there we had a win-win that we were able to present to all the parties, and it was a slam dunk.
And the thing that you did there, just to kind of put the nail on it, is you came up with a solution that provided value to all parties, not a solution that reduced your costs where you can make more margin on the
That's
project.
correct. Yes. The savings were passed along to
Dude,
the
I love that. I'm such an advocate of that, right? And I get so frustrated when I don't, there's not many people out there that think that way, honestly, Tanner. There's really
we
not.
may not have been awarded the project otherwise because we were the only ones that presented a viable, and they encourage that. Like you see,
Sure.
If you have a viable alternative, present it, right? And, municipalities, they're working on tight budgets. And
Yeah.
So, I'm had worked with the city of Siloam Springs on some other projects, and I really just kind of had just become familiar with that product. And when I first opened up the plans, and I thought, what, this is a perfect application for this new technology. And
what I think a lot of folks forget, and if they would just spend some time and put themselves in their own shoes, honestly, but the same principle in business is happening when you have the person with the money that's investing in the project, whoever that is, whoever's forking out the cash. You can relate to that in the same way as if you are getting a pool installed in your house, right? Mm-hmm. And I, as a homeowner, I'm paying $50,000 to get this pool installed. All I want to have happen, it's very simple. I just want the pool to get installed on the right budget, If you can save me money, that's even better. And to get it done right and to get it done on time, in a reasonable time period. But the problem starts happening whenever you have all these other people that get involved and they're trying to just, how do I make more money?
Oh, yeah.
How do I make more money?
It's messy.
It gets really messy quick and becomes frustrating, and people don't have good referrals. And a lot of these entrepreneurs don't think long term. They're thinking about just this project. How can I capitalize the most on this one thing? And then they're not thinking about the referral, the word of mouth, the brand of their company. Because if I can build a company where every client, the majority of every client I got, when they're walking around, they're talking to people about my business, if they're saying, man, they really live up to, they provide great service. They always, I feel the value is there every time.
Let me give you an engineering axiom for construction.
Okay.
Good, fast, or cheap. Pick two.
Right.
And it's kind of, the law of conservation of energy when you think about it, because you can't have all three.
Right.
Or somebody's losing, more or less. Mm-hmm. So in the construction world, you can present a project or a proposal for a project. You can do it good and cheap, but it won't be fast.
Right.
You can do it fast and cheap, but it won't be good.
Right.
So those are different pricing scenarios and methods of installation. And once you really have a better handle on your business, you understand how to approach projects with those different aspects. But it's key to obviously communicate. It's too easy for contractors, which is why they have architects to decide for their clients during the build. Mm-hmm. Like what you just talked about. So architect in Latin means orchestrator. And I would say that skill was developed from the program and my situation. And I very much understood my role, which it wasn't. I wasn't the one who was in charge or supposed to do it. I was the one who was supposed to orchestrate the team together to accomplish the goal. Mm-hmm. So that aspect of management and running a project was something learned. And that, I think, is really more to the curriculum. Not a lot of people get that kind of training, I guess. You think in the A&E industry, engineers like straight lines, and they don't like curves. They don't like organic shapes. Artists, tend to like those things, but be very impractical.
Yeah.
Well, the architect's job, and the owner likes things to not cost very much.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But they don't want their project to be ugly.
Sure.
Or to not be inviting, or to be sterile, or not accomplish their goals. So it's our job to bring all of that together with these different forces that all have their own kind of agendas, not in a bad way, but just with their discipline.
Yeah.
So that orchestration of the team to build a successful project is, I think, translates into all industries. Mm-hmm. Now you're starting to see, the term architect being used in web design and software infrastructure. Yeah. A lot more applications.
We got a few minutes left. I mean, time goes by quick when we have these convers, and you're going to you need to come back. And I mean, this is just the first of many. I want to hang out with something for the last few minutes. I want you to kind of go on a roll with this. I think that a common thread we've been talking about today is a little bit about the young folks, entrepreneurs that are out there. But the other common thread is this value-driven mindset as an entrepreneur, and how important that is. Can you maybe go down that road just a little bit more about how significant that is? Because I think that, I still get swallowed up in this scenario of where, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, There's millions of books out there.
Yes. You should read as many as you can.
Great advice. Seriously, like that's okay. Perfect.
I have 5 books right now that I would recommend.
You'll throw them out.
The E-Myth, the Entrepreneurial Myth.
Yep.
And the second book, the follow-up, the E-Myth Revisited. Such a key. Oh my gosh, it's so eye-opening. Where he talks about the technician, the manager, and the dreamer, and every entrepreneur is some combination of those 3. He gives the analogy of the hairdresser who she's very good at cutting hair, has all of these clients. She's a great technician at cutting hair, but now she wants to open her own salon. Well, now she's managing other chairs with other people who are cutting hair. Is she a good manager?
That's right.
Is she a good dreamer? Does she have a plan for her after that?
Right.
Is she going to expand? Is she?
Yep.
So understanding what you are, who you are, and where you need help. And that helps you to get there on your own or to hire the right people. That was a great book. Another book, The Goal, Elijah Goldratt. It's a business novel. Okay. It's one of the first business novels ever written, and it talks a lot about the theory of constraints and Six Sigma. I don't know if you've ever studied any of that, but that was eye-opening to me. It pertained a lot to manufacturing and whatnot, but one of the best books I've read. Benjamin Graham, The Intelligent Investor.
Yeah.
That's Warren Buffett, mentor. This is an old book, too. This is from the 30s.
Sure, but still applicable.
Oh, yeah. Value investing is what that whole book is about.
Yeah.
And it parlays into all business. You know, the way Mr. Graham goes and analyzes the stock and the companies behind the stock. I mean, that's how you analyze your own business.
That's right.
So that was really eye-opening and helped me understand more about what I was doing, to study about what other people were doing, and an analysis is another analyst's interpretation of what they were doing.
Yeah.
So that was very informative. I really got into the theory of constraints books. There's several different things on that, but if you're in anything construction, manufacturing, I would highly encourage that.
So there's a lot of material out there. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of perspectives. There's a lot of, directions that people can get. And if I'm working in a company, I'm nervous about breaking out as an entrepreneur, or if I'm young and I'm aspiring to be an entrepreneur, I think, though, with this podcast that we did today, your common theme of providing that value.
Oh, sorry, one more.
Please.
Sorry, you're Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Absolutely.
One of the best books.
And I'd have one. My favorite is Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, Napoleon
Hill. Bro, it's like it's... But on that, but so that conversation, like there's this essence, there's just like the value proposition you're talking about earlier, at the core of all these tactical things that you can do and all this learning that you can go about, and you got books and spreadsheets and P&Ls and all this stuff, and you got sales, but there's a core and essence at the heart of an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. And I think you're kind of tapping into it a little bit. I'm wanting to go down and discover that a little bit more, because it's satisfying for me to think about it as well. But there's something in that value that you're just driven in your heart to find for somebody. It's just like when you said waiting tables. I remember being waiting tables, and I actually wanted to give that customer a value. And that was the difference between me and a lot of the other servers that were there. If you walk in and you're just trying to get a job and trying to get a tip, but I didn't approach it that way. I approached it as, how can I make this experience the best for that person?
When you work anywhere, even though they have to pay you for being there, you're rewarded for your effort. You don't get a job so that you can have a paycheck. If that is your goal, then it's going to be tough on you.
Yeah.
You get a job because you want to help someone with their vision.
That's right.
And as an entrepreneur, this is a a Ronnie Floyd quote. That's your job, baby. I just need to have the vision. And he was so good about knowing when to let the people that do what they do do their thing. Especially when it came to design stuff, he was in tune with that part of it. But the key really is to find that value proposition you can present to the person you're trying to help, whether that's your employer, your partner, your client. So you really need to learn empathy and how to dive deep into why does this person need me, or how can I help this person?
There you go.
A great question for young people trying to figure out, where to go is find people you look up to that you see as successful and ask them, what do you need help with right now? What are your biggest problems facing you? And you might be able to find a solution in the background and come back to them and say, I think I may have something for you. Would you have some time to sit down and talk about it? And whether or not that turns anything or not, maybe that's a door that will open up for you later, or maybe that's a door that opens up for you right then. But it's those kind of meetings and that come about as a result of your personal goals, your drive, your ambition. But if you're out there doing nothing and waiting for everything to be perfect before you take that action, then you're going to miss out on those kind of things. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there and communicate and network, and you'll find those people and those type scenarios. And everybody has problems, okay? There's not you take the most successful person that you perceive around you, and they have problems too. Yeah. So if you're building a business or you want to go into any specific business or industry, you should find other people that are successful in those industries, and you should go to them and try to, find a mentor group or try to analyze how they did it and learn from some of their mistakes so that you don't repeat them, or present a value proposition and start doing business with them. There's several avenues to get going. It's just really a matter of you getting out there and doing the work.
Boom. We have to end on that mic drop. Fantastic conversation, man. I mean, I can't wait to have you back in, and I'd love to keep digging in that, because there's something so fundamental about that part of entrepreneurship, and you don't have to. We can catastrophize what's required, but at the end of the day, if you are relentlessly interested in providing value in your trade and you're trying to solve that problem,
you're going to get there.
You're going to get there.
Yeah.
And don't try to make your timeline. Don't try to make a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. Focus on that, and the money will come. And
soak in the failure, soak in the small, minor pitfalls, and use those to propel yourself.
That's right.
Learn from your own mistakes.
Yep.
If you aren't learning from other people's, at least learn from your own.
Yeah. Experience is the best teacher. Well, this is, Tanner, how do people get a hold of you? If say there's some aspiring entrepreneurs out there, is there a way that they can get a hold of you? Or
you could email me at tannerbassett@yahoo.com.
Sweet. Just old school, bro. Some old school email. Tanner Bassett is TANNERBASSETT @yahoo.com.
And I would encourage everyone check into the Carbon Chicken project. I'm not an investor in that, but I really like the project, and I've been helping them do some R&D. But I think that's one of those. It has such a win-win for all of the major implications that it could have. I think the word needs to get out on that.
Carbon Chicken. I like it, man.
Carbon Chicken project.
Should be a good logo associated with that.
Yeah, I meant to bring the hat.
That's cool. Hey, folks, thank y'all for joining us today. We really appreciate you as always. It means a lot to us when you like and subscribe and sign up for emails on our website. And if you have a product that you feel that entrepreneurs need to know about, give us a shot. You can sponsor the show. and would love to have you. This has been another fantastic episode of Big Talk about small business.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We'll have you back again. Thank you, brother.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about small business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.